Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at AQA AS Psychology 2017 Paper 1 Examplar Answers for Memory, which you need to know for AQA Alevel Psychology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Please note that these answers have been produced with knowledge of the mark scheme but have not been approved by the mark scheme themselves. There are 3 assessment objectives, AOs, in psychology. In this video they are color-coded. AO1 Knowledge, purple. AO2 Application, blue. AO3 Evaluation, red and green. In AS there are 12 mark questions, instead of 16 mark questions. For the purpose of this video and to avoid confusion for Alevel, the 12 mark questions have been turned into 16 mark questions. Question 1. Identify the main type of coding used in each of the following components of the multi-store model of memory. 2 marks. Short-term memory. Long-term memory. Short-term memory, acoustic. Long-term memory, semantic. Question 2. Memory studies are sometimes criticized for being unrealistic. Briefly explain 2 ways that this criticism could be addressed in memory research. 4 marks. One way that this criticism could be addressed in memory research is by the researcher using environments that are natural for participants such as school classrooms when learning and recalling information. A second way that this criticism could be addressed in memory research is by the researcher ensuring that the tasks are everyday tasks for their participants, such as learning definitions if they are student participants. Zena witnessed a violent incident. The attacker pulled out a knife and threatened the victim. Zena was close to the attacker and was very frightened and anxious. Her friend, Amanda, was further away and less anxious. The police took witness statements from both Zena and Amanda. Their statements were very different. Question 3. Using your knowledge of research into the effects of anxiety on eyewitness testimony, explain why Zena's and Amanda's statements are different. 4 marks. When anxiety and arousal is high, as is the case for Zena, this leads to a decrease in accuracy and detail compared with Amanda. This is supported by research, e.g. Johnson and Scott, who found that those in the high anxiety condition were less likely to accurately identify the man. Duffenbacher, 1983, meta-analysis found that high levels of anxiety negatively affected the memory of eyewitnesses. A psychologist decided to interview both Zena and Amanda 5 months later to see if they could still remember the same level of detail about the incident. Question 4. Explain one ethical issue the psychologist must consider before interviewing Zena and Amanda. 2 marks. One ethical issue the psychologist must consider before interviewing Zena and Amanda is protection from psychological harm. Zena and Amanda could experience psychological harm from having to recall the details of the incident again, so they could be offered counseling. Question 5. Describe and evaluate interference as an explanation for forgetting. 16 marks. Interference suggests that forgetting occurs when 2 memories conflict, compete, interfere with and disrupt each other, resulting in a forgetting of one or both memories or a distortion confusion in memory. It is more likely when the information is similar, response competition. It makes a memory harder to locate even if it is available. Retroactive interference is when new, recently learnt information interferes with and disrupts the recall of previously learnt information. For example, when you learn your new mobile phone number but are unable to remember your old one, when a teacher learns all the names of their new class that they forget the names of their old class. McGeoch and McDonald's, 1931, aimed to investigate the effects of retroactive interference on memory recall. Specifically, they wanted to see how learning new information that is similar or dissimilar to previously learnt information would affect a person's ability to recall the original information. All participants were asked to learn a list of 10 words, list A, until they could remember them all. After learning list A, participants were divided into 6 different groups. Each group was then given a second list to learn, List B. The second list varied in similarity to the first list. Group 1, List B was synonyms of List A, words with the same meaning as the original words. Group 2, List B was antonyms of List A, words with the opposite meaning as the original words. Group 3, List B was nonsense syllables. Group 4, List B was numbers. Group 5, List B was unrelated words. Group 6, no new list. After learning both lists, participants were asked to recall the words from List A. They found that the groups that learnt a second similar list to the first, e.g. synonyms, showed the greatest amount of interference and had the poorest recall of List A. Conversely, the groups that learned dissimilar or unrelated lists, e.g. numbers or unrelated words, experienced less interference and had better recall of List A. A limitation of McGeoch and MacDonald's study is that it lacks ecological validity, which refers to the extent to which the findings can be generalized to real-world settings. The study was conducted in a controlled environment, which is not like the environment in everyday life. McGeoch and MacDonald's study was conducted in a controlled laboratory setting, which doesn't mirror the complexities and nuances of memory and remembering in natural environments, where other external and environmental factors can affect a person's ability to recall and remember information. This is a limitation because it suggests that the results may not be applicable to real-life situations where memory is influenced by various factors, such as emotional context, distractions, or social interactions. The artificial nature of the laboratory setting may lead to an oversimplified understanding of how memory works in everyday life, ultimately questioning the reliability of the study's conclusions in reflecting actual memory processes. Proactive interference is when previously learnt information interferes with and disrupts the recall of new, recently learnt information. For example, when an old mobile phone number is recalled when trying to recall the new mobile phone number, when a teacher has learnt so many names in the past they struggle to remember the names of their new class. Keppel and Underwood's, 1962, aimed to investigate proactive interference in the long-term memory in an experiment that resembled Peterson and Peterson, 1959. Participants were asked to memorize multiple lists of consonant trigrams, 3-letter combinations, like XQJ or BKT, after varying time intervals, e.g. 3, 6, 9 seconds. To prevent rehearsal, participants had to count backwards in threes before recalling. They found that participants' ability to recall trigrams decreased as they were presented with more lists. Specifically, the first list learnt was recalled with high accuracy, irrespective of the time interval length, but recall performance declined for subsequent lists. The decline in recall was attributed to proactive interference. This means that the trigrams learnt in earlier lists interfered with the ability to remember the trigrams in later lists. They concluded that proactive interference could significantly impact short-term memory. Even with short retention intervals, previously learnt information can disrupt the recall of new information. A limitation of Keppel and Underwood's study is that the study lacks mundane realism. The study's use of trigrams, nonsense syllables, may not accurately represent how memory functions in real-world scenarios, as it is an artificial task, unlike memory recall in real-world settings, where information is often more meaningful and complex, such as names, events, or experiences, rather than random strings of letters. This is a limitation because it suggests that the conclusions drawn from the study may not be applicable to how memory works in everyday life. A limitation of Keppel and Underwood's study is that it lacks ecological validity, meaning that the findings may not be applicable to real-world situations. The study was conducted in a controlled laboratory environment where participants were asked to memorize trigrams and then perform a distraction task. This artificial setting does not reflect how memory is used in everyday life, where people often remember more complex information and are influenced by various external factors. In real-life scenarios, memory tasks are usually more meaningful and context-rich, which can enhance recall. This is a limitation because it suggests that the results found may not be able to be generalized to the wider population, as the study's conditions are so far removed from typical memory tasks, and therefore the study may not accurately reflect how memory operates in everyday situations. A strength of the interference theory as an explanation of forgetting is that there is real-world research to support the theory. Baddeley and Hitch, 1977, aimed to investigate whether interference was a better explanation for forgetting than the passage of time. They asked rugby union players to recall all the names of the teams they had played against earlier in the season each week. Some of the rugby union players had missed some games due to injury. Baddeley and Hitch found that players who had played the most games forgot proportionately more games than those who had played fewer games due to injury. These results support the idea of interference theory, as the learning of new information, new team names, interfered with the memory of old information, earlier team names, as recall didn't depend on how long ago the games took place but the number of games they had played. This is a strength because it suggests that interference theory has practical implications for understanding memory in real-life situations, rather than just in controlled laboratory settings. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.